In a small, quiet town nestled deep in the New England countryside, there stood an old mill by the river, abandoned for nearly a century. The building was a relic of a bygone era, with its decaying wooden beams and ivy-covered stone walls. It was the kind of place that children dared each other to approach, especially at night. One fall evening, a local historian named Susan decided to explore the mill. She had heard the stories, of course, tales of eerie noises, unexplained shadows, and a figure seen wandering the grounds after dark. But Susan was skeptical. To her, the old mill was just that, an old mill, nothing more. Equipped with a flashlight and a camera, Susan made her way to the mill just as the sun began to set. As she entered, the wooden floorboards creaked under her weight. Dust particles danced in the beam of her flashlight as she navigated the labyrinth of decaying rooms. At first, everything seemed ordinary. The place was silent except for the occasional drip of water from a leaky roof and the distant rustle of leaves. But then, as Susan approached the central room where the old machinery lay dormant, she felt a sudden chill. The temperature dropped noticeably, and she could see her breath in the air. Undeterred, Susan continued her exploration, taking photographs as she went. As she moved deeper into the mill, the atmosphere grew heavier. It felt as though she was being watched, but each time she turned around, there was nothing there. Then, she heard it, a faint, rhythmic sound, like the creaking of a wheel turning slowly. It was coming from the old water wheel outside, but when she glanced out the window, the wheel was still. Confused, Susan stepped closer to the window to get a better look. Suddenly, her flashlight flickered and went out, plunging her into darkness. She fumbled to turn it back on, her heart pounding in her chest. Just as the light came back on, she saw it, a figure standing in the doorway, watching her. The figure was a woman, dressed in an old-fashioned dress, her face pale and expressionless. Susan's breath caught in her throat as the woman slowly raised her arm, pointing towards the river. Terrified, Susan turned and ran, her footsteps echoing through the empty building. As she reached the exit, she risked one last glance back. The woman was gone. Gasping for breath, Susan sprinted across the bridge that led away from the mill. When she finally reached the safety of her car, she collapsed inside, her hands shaking uncontrollably. Back at home, Susan reviewed the photos she had taken. Most were ordinary, capturing the mill's interior in various states of decay. But one image stood out, a photo of the central room, where the machinery lay. In the corner of the frame, barely visible, was the ghostly figure of a woman, her eyes locked on the camera. Susan never returned to the mill. To this day, the image remains her only proof of the encounter, a haunting reminder of the night she came face to face with the unknown. Locals say the woman was the mill owner's wife, who died tragically when the mill was in operation. Her spirit, they believe, is bound to the place. Unable to find peace, the mill still stands, shrouded in mystery, its secrets hidden within its crumbling walls. And those brave enough to venture inside after dark often leave with stories of their own, stories of a ghostly figure, cold chills, and the unmistakable feeling of being watched.